So you can have trade with Russia, although sanctions is another issue, so you have to think about how you can have trade. But you can certainly have diplomacy with Russia and not say no to everything diplomatically necessarily with Russia. But you have to give something to the United States and the West if you want to be part of that community.
What could be that something?
Well, certainly sanctions. I think we want to see the Georgian government be more actively engaged in sanctioning Russia, because there's no other way besides military, which of course the Georgian government and we, the United States, don't want to get involved militarily. We are only indirectly providing the Ukrainian military with forces so that they can defend themselves. But the war that we are waging against Russia is economic. And so it would be helpful to have all countries that are democracies that want to be part of the European Union and the transatlantic community to be helping more with sanctions, because that is something that could change Vladimir Putin's mind and maybe ultimately get him to leave Georgia's occupied territories as well.
Do you still see Georgia in that part of, in that group of countries?
Countries that want to become democracies?
Yes.
Yes, because that's what the Georgian people want.
You say people?
Yes, the people of Georgia.
Not the state or government?
Well,
are you just
the
careful,
government technically, of course, is also seeking European Union and NATO membership. So yes, it's the people and the government speaking through the people, speaking for the people.
Why only technically?
I guess I have some
Something
questions about the level of commitment. Perhaps there's a fear of Russia now.
Which is natural, actually.
Which is natural, but the thing
which
is,
is kind
Georgia
of understandable for many people.
But Georgia is in less danger
That's
today.
part of rhetoric of the government. That's
yes, but Georgia is in less danger today than it was in the past from Russia, from Russian invasion, from Russian military action.
You think so?
Yes. Why? Because Vladimir Putin can barely win in Ukraine. That's why when he threatens Estonia, which he was doing last week, I say pay no attention. He's only saying that to try to intimidate the West so that we don't provide increased support to Ukraine. He cannot open another front right now. He is not going to win in Ukraine.
You are that sure? Because there is also a perception that Russia still has enough resources to increase problems in Georgia, against Georgia. So,
and then what? And then what? I mean, he's still not going to win. You know, he can, sure, yes, I know he just moved the border posts, you know, on the border with South Ossetia. Okay, he can do that every day. But he's not going to control Georgia. And ultimately, the West and the international community is on the side of Georgia and will remain on the side of Georgia just as we are on the side of Ukraine. So we believe Georgia has the right to defend itself as well, although you can argue, and so I'll say it now, that we should have helped Georgia more after 2008. We learned our lesson, and now we're helping Ukraine.
Is the lesson learned? Are you sure?
Here's the thing.
Of 2008,
Vladimir
of 2014.
Putin conducted a new invasion. He was already still in Ukraine, just as he still is in Georgia. Yeah. And he can launch a new invasion into Georgia if he wants to, because he feels like he's not controlling the people and the government of Georgia. But that's an expensive proposition for him right now when he's busy with Ukraine. Now, if he wins in Ukraine, the next morning he's coming over here and he is going to try to control Georgia and Moldova.
Yeah, you said that in the very beginning of this full-scale war. So when you're discussing the war in Ukraine and the perspective, do you more often use phrase if Ukraine wins or when Ukraine wins?
Well, I believe that Ukraine can win, and I believe that it will win because of the will of the people, because of everything the Ukrainians have learned through the history of fighting, because of the will of the West, and in particular my government, to make sure that Ukraine remains a sovereign country with control of its territory. And all of that, plus the fact that the will of the Russian people is not the same. They don't want a war, even though it's popular because the Russian media tells people that they should support this operation. But they support this operation, but they don't support a full-out war against Ukraine where every man has to go and fight in Ukraine. They don't support that. And Russia doesn't have the military capability. They're now under sanctions, so they cannot get access to, and this is why sanctions are important, because they should not get access to technology through Georgia or any other country. And they are also going to run out of money because the oil and gas, their customers are looking elsewhere. There are many reasons why Russia can lose and Ukraine can win, but ultimately, the most important thing as a Georgian to consider is that if Ukraine loses or if Putin wins in Ukraine, he will not stop. You know the mentality here in the Caucasus, this Putin mentality. He will turn and he will try to control Georgia, and if he has to do it militarily, he will do it militarily.